Alright, so I guess I played 19 games that came out this year. Granted, some of these are DLCs, but 19 is a lot more than I expected, and I'm nowhere near completing all the games that I wanted to play that came out this year. So for suspense, I won't say what I haven't played until the end of the video, but I'm going to list all the games from the worst to the best under my own personal values and opinions. So for example, if the game is a horror game, like Five Nights at Freddy's, it may be a good game, objectively speaking. But for me, I hate horror games, so naturally, I'm not going to rate it as high. This list is a personal opinion of mine. I'm not speaking for other people, this is only speaking for myself. There will be things that you will disagree on, no doubt, but I'm not rating these objectively for everyone. Just had to make that clear. Alright, let's get started. Diablo 4. This is one of those examples of it just not a game for me. I basically wasted $70 and I'm sure glad I didn't pay for that dumb like $100 edition for early access or whatever that was. These games need to stop doing that. Never played a Diablo game, unless you count Diablo Immortal, but I've played games similar to Diablo. I'm very familiar with the looter genre. The theme of like medieval or whatever it is for Diablo isn't for me. I was interested in the story to begin with and I didn't really give it a chance. I skipped through the cutscenes because I just didn't care. I just wanted the gameplay experience, so I'm only judging the gameplay here. The story and cutscenes may have been good. I don't know because I didn't watch or read any of it. But I can tell you how terribly designed the gameplay was. The skill tree, skill path, is probably one of the most fumbled things I've seen in a game. For something like Diablo to have so many nodes and abilities in a single class, but still feel so limited and narrow in progression, was so frustrating. You can even make a build based on what you like doing. You had to build with what you got, in which I think it should be the other way around, in which your gear assists your build. Not only that, you don't get to feel how powerful you are. The best way I can explain this is using Pokemon for example. Route 1 has level 2 to 3 Pokemon and it's pretty challenging if you're trying to level your level 2 Pidgey. Fast forward 20 hours, you got a level 80 Pidgeot, you come back and you see all those level 2 scrub Rattatas and you realize how strong you've become. Diablo isn't like that, it just scales to your level, and it sucks trying to get to places, but it's always against enemies equal or greater than your level, all the time. You never really feel how strong you are unless you're using a broken meta that will eventually get nerfed. I played and dropped the game before Season 1 even existed, and have no plans on playing it again. If I could refund it, I would. I love Pokemon, man, but Scarlet and Violet DLC is just really bad, especially when we compare to other DLCs for different games. I made a video on both parts of the DLC if you want an extra minute of my opinion, but like, they just need to give more reason to keep playing the game. The only endgame is to do the laggy and easy raids to get shards to change Pokemon Terra types so then you can raid more, I guess, I don't know. But like, if you're not doing online tournaments or shiny hunting, then there really is no reason to play the game, and the DLC did not solve that issue. It felt like it was a $30 package of just reissued of maybe about 300 Pokemon, and let me tell you, I was very excited when Geodude made its holy return. I also made a video on this that got a lot of people mad. Mario Wonders was short, easy, and boring. No way you can say this 5-hour game was worth $60. Some of the comments on my video said like to do the post-game content that I was not stoked about, so when I had a power outage at my house for an entire night, I said, screw it, it's Mario time. Little did I know I ended up playing as Super Goomba Bros for the first level. I gave it like 5 minutes of running around like the pile of poop I am and had Persona 5 Rat Maze PTSD in that one palace and closed the game and played Fire Emblem Engage instead. Yeah. Almost all the Mario levels are very short, underbaked. If we just took out the part of like the Wonder Flower, which was supposed to be like the remix or a fun little spin of the level, it's just very bland and just terrible. The Wonder Flower carries each level because of how different or wonky the level gets, but even then, they don't last that long. Therefore, the difficulty just isn't what I expected from it. Mario Wonders just gets too much praise, probably because of the amount of like vibrant colors or something, but like, to this day, I still don't understand why almost everyone likes the game and thinks it's like Game of the Year contender. It really isn't. So Wayfinder is technically in early access and is constantly being updated. My opinion is solely based on the same week it was released. I did a video on this already, and I think it's actually very promising. They have done lots of updates since launch that I have not tried yet, but maybe I will get back to it soon. Obviously, it's not a finished game, and is somewhat bare bones and repetitive as of now, but I truly think it will catch a lot of people's attention when it fully releases, with a lot of new and exciting features. Starfield. I made a video on this disaster of a game. Part of me wants me to just trash on this game and rank it below Diablo off of pure frustration, but there are a couple of things in Starfield that I actually really liked. Like the Crimson Fleet side adventure, I like that a lot, but I mean, everything else is just really bad. All the flaws link back to the skills that take so long to gain, and some basic necessities you would think you'd have, you need to waste a skill point in your skill tree. Just watch my video if you want to hear me trash talk about it for 15 minutes, but I mean, I was ultimately disappointed after being hyped for years for this game. I love the base game of Tales of Arise. The story, the cast, and the graphics were really good, and I loved it. The DLC had me check it out again, see the cast I loved again, and see the animations again. It was basically a reunion, and I liked it for that. Didn't do anything groundbreaking like new playable characters or arts, but I mean, ultimately I still enjoyed my time. Destiny. I really don't know what to say without going on a long rant, especially with recent Destiny blunders, but thanks solely on the Lightfall expansion content, excluding seasonal content. It was fun gameplay wise, but the storytelling was just really bad. And Bungie realized their mistake by making us listen to audio logs that I release like every week. Yeah, I'd rather experience and witness a story and not listen to it on Amazon audiobook app. Strand subclass is fun as I can be Spider-Man in first-person shooter. The exotic guns that came out with the expansions were cool, but coming off the storytelling and success of Witch Queen expansion last year, Lightfall was a disappointment. A new FPS live service has entered the scene, and has been getting nothing but praise. The finals is kind of like a combination of maybe Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege, and it works. It's very fun playing the objective, protecting the cash out, taking a team or two to try to steal a cash out, or just running for your life as you are the last person standing for your team. It's something new, it's something different, and something fun that sets itself and has its own identity among other FPS live service games. It's still early days for live service, so let's see how they deal with like content updates and major patch notes and whatnot. But so far, it looks very promising, and I'm very curious on how it will be like a year from now if it's able to retain players for that long. So I wanted to get this video out like last week, but because of this game, the videos was released a bit later than I would like. Remnant 2 is like a combination of Dark Souls and maybe Borderlands, with a less emphasis on the wacky guns. It's actually a pretty decent game for anyone that likes a challenge. The first like 5 hours, however, were very boring. I even stopped playing because I was bored. Luckily, I picked it back up when I read a comment from someone that stated like the first 5 hours were very bad. Turns out, he was right. Once you get out of the tutorial world and the first world, and you realize how the game is structured, it's actually very cool. There's a good amount of bosses that are challenging in their own right. The exploration is kind of cool, but I think the world design is very pretty to look at. From the labyrinth to the majestic palace to the futuristic poisonous desert thing, I thought it was pretty cool, and there's a decent amount of stuff within these worlds. Even the guns are really cool in terms of gunplay and how they look. And to get these cool guns are mostly from rewards and beating certain bosses. In this game, I always felt rewarded for any accomplishment that I did. The main problem I had with the game is obviously the first 5 hours of the game, which was very boring and mundane, but also the weapons. Not the weapons that you get from bosses, but just normie weapons and weapons from shopkeepers. There's just not a good amount of base weapons to pick from, and after beating a world or two, they're just pointless. I'm not saying the boss weapons are too good, but the base weapon selection should increase as I unlock more worlds in case I want to experiment with weapon mods, since my boss weapons already have a built-in mod, so I can't slot in any new weapon mods in them. But Remnant 2 is still a very good game and deserves all the praise that it's been getting this year. Lies of P is another Souls-like game taking place in the 1800s in Germany, and you play as Pinocchio, who explores the city of Krat, slaying a bunch of mechanical puppets that went evil. I actually have not finished playing this game. I think I'm about halfway through, but I'm enjoying my time. I myself am a terrible Dark Souls player. I think I was stuck on like the tutorial boss in Dark Souls 3 for 2 hours, and it took me about 40 hours to get through 3 of the 5 bosses of Elden Ring, another Souls game I have not finished yet. But I really like how the world looks and is very dark, almost post-apocalyptic feel, and the bosses are great, and the feel for combat is very gritty and very satisfying. The different weapons and skills you can do are very cool, and I occasionally change them around depending on the situation. Again, I still need to beat it, but I am very confident in having this ranked this high up on my list, based on what I've played so far. One of the breakout indie games that released this year. If you have never heard of Lethal Company, you must not have access to the internet. This Lethal Company craze reminds me of when the Among Us craze went around, and for a good reason. Lethal Company is very simple. Go in, grab stuff, get out safely, and have enough money for the quota or else you lose. This game is great with friends, and everything that happens feels organic, and all your friends, including you, just become great actors as you freak out from a monster hiding in a corner, or a bracken murdering your partner buddy, or you witness your friend's lack of parkour skills. This may be labeled as a horror game, but this game is just too funny. I myself hate horror games, and I refuse to play them. I've never played Five Nights at Freddy's because I'm scared of it. Lethal Company, on the other hand, is just great with friends, and I find myself laughing more than I'm not as I'm playing. And I have to stop myself from playing because I can't breathe from laughing too much. Technically, this game is in early access, so I can't wait for all the new locations and items that they will be adding this upcoming year. I played Star Wars Survivor at launch, and just like many of you, I suffered a lot from the lack of optimization. So once I found like the perfect graphic settings that didn't look like DS graphics and was able to run it just past 60 frames, I did a full send on the game and beating it the same week it was released. I'm not accounting the lack of optimization into it, because then it would make this list very dated. The game was decent. The combat is fun, the levels were very well made, some of the boss fights were good. The ending could have been better or just sped up a little bit. I still prefer Fallen Order, mostly because there was a good variety in planets that you travel to. In Survivor, I'm pretty sure it was just that one planet that had like 6 different biomes for no reason at all, and it got pretty lame just staying in that planet for so long. I did like Cal's internal struggle throughout this game, and even dabbled with the dark side, and I hope they expand on that with the next installment. Ooh, Sea of Stars. Such a cool name for such a cool game. I did a video on this as well and gave it a lot of praise. I was happy when this game won the Indie Award at the Game Awards. This game lives up to the hype that other people have been saying about it. Looks amazing, plays amazing. It's just really fun. It reminds me of Chrono Trigger, and we all know how great Chrono Trigger was back in the day. This is probably one of the big surprises for me of games that came out this year, and it's just really, really fun. Apparently, the most Googled game of this year, or whatever, probably because of the J.K. Rowling controversy. It also happened to be the best-selling game of this year. I do think that it does deserve this. As a Harry Potter game, this is good. Being able to explore within Hogwarts, the Forbidden Forest, and Hogsmeade, and more almost seamlessly is a very cool experience. You learn a very good variety of spells fairly quick, with the exception of like the forbidden spells. The forbidden spells take a while to learn since they are tied to a questline, but it's really cool using them, and it's worth the grind getting them. Unfortunately, there's no like morality system, so you can just use them in front of a professor, and they won't bat an eye because you used like Avada Kedavra. But as I said before, it's a very good Harry Potter game. But taking Harry Potter out of the equation, is it a good semi-open world RPG? Not really. It has a lot of unused areas, lack of companions, what you typically see in other RPGs. And you did have some of them actually follow you if you did do their quest line, but it would be nice if they could also join you in your own personal adventure. Although there are a decent amount of spells, I do wish there was an extra layer in combat, as you get yourself in the same rotation of spells pretty quickly. But anyone who has watched Harry Potter or read the books or anything related to Harry Potter should definitely play this game. Persona 5 Tactica is a spin-off of Persona 5 and is the title just before Persona 3 Reload is released in the next year. It's pretty much a combination of both Fire Emblem-ish, which is my favorite tactical game, and Persona 5, which is arguably one of the best JRPGs ever made. And so naturally, I love this game for that matter alone. I did do a video on this, but even though the gameplay challenge wasn't there for me, the story alone was surprisingly a lot more deep and emotional than I initially expected, especially for a spin-off game. So in terms of spin-off games, this is probably one of the best I've played. I remember seeing the initial leaks for Fire Emblem Engage and seeing a Colgate toothpaste as the main character and thinking, oh, she is too much, this game is going to be a disaster. And here I am, with my Lear profile picture on my Switch. The game is just too good, and very, very satisfying. I could be wrong, and I'm very lazy to check my sources because I am very tired, but I think Fire Emblem was supposed to be released in like 2021-ish as a Fire Emblem 30th anniversary game, but because of COVID and the release of Fire Emblem 3 Hopes, I believe, they held on to this game, polishing it for its release this year. So under the scope of like 30th anniversary, or just anniversary in general, it makes sense for this game to be a celebration, given the gimmick of all the past heroes of past Fire Emblem games having an appearance as rings. But since it wasn't released then, it's hard not to compare this to Fire Emblem Three Houses. Three Houses, for sure, had a much more complex, intricate, and engaging, very dark story than Engage. Three Houses may be a better entry point for newer players to get into the Fire Emblem series, but Fire Emblem Engage's gameplay is just so much more fun and addicting. The UI is the best it's ever been. The Engage mechanic where you fuse with like past Fire Emblem heroes and temporarily allow you to use their skills adds a layer of strategy of different builds and combos that you can do. It may sound like the Engage mechanic may seem like a cheat code, but at least in my hard mode run, it was necessary to be using these skills, like fully healing everyone, spawning clones, or even being able to teleport across the map, especially in the latter half of the game. The game is pretty hard and it's very fun completing these chapters, since I sometimes needed to stop and think which units should go where, and if they should engage or save it for later, or whatever. The DLC maps are even harder, which made them even more fun to complete. I think it's just one of those games where it's hard, but doesn't cause frustration, which I think it's perfect for what Engage is trying to be. So yeah, I beat the game on hard mode without anyone dying, and it took me about like 100 hours to complete. 100 hours of pure enjoyment. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is basically Breath of the Wild, but bigger. More weapons, more armor, more enemies, more story, more puzzles, more bosses, more surprises, more quests, more just everything. Anyone who calls it Breath of the Wild with DLC is just butthurt that they either can't put two brain cells together to complete puzzles or just don't have enough money to buy the game. It took me around, I think, 40 hours to beat Breath of the Wild, and it took me about 70 hours to beat Tears of the Kingdom. It's just that much more content being pumped into this game. This is not a DLC. This is what a sequel game is supposed to be. That's like saying Spider-Man 2 is just Spider-Man 1, but with DLC. There really isn't much for me to say that hasn't been said about this game already. It's really fun with the new powers you're given, whether it's like combining items into your weapon and making unholy creations, or making vehicles that shouldn't be on Nintendo properties. It's just really fun for any type of gamer, really. My real only complaint is that the dungeon bosses are very easy, and that I could beat them as Naked Link with maybe some arrows and bow. They were more of like a mechanic battle rather than like a combat test, which I didn't really like, but thankfully the final boss was a great combat test. God, I played this game too much. I have at least 400 plus hours and I'm still actively playing this game. The story is really, really good. The combat is simple, but is very, very deep, especially if you're doing all the endgame activities. I did do a video on this, whether or not it's too late to start playing Star Rail if you're interested in watching that. I think it's very cool in how they introduce characters, especially for some of like the main like 5-star characters such as Jinglu. She has been referenced and indirectly referred to several times in the story months before her actual reveal. I'm pretty sure they did the same thing with the current banner for Ruan Mei, but I do need to check my sources on that one. The world building is just amazing, which is not something that you typically see in a mobile game, so to speak. Starfield also won Mobile Game of the Year at the Game Awards, and that's for a good reason. The storytelling, combat, visuals, animation, music, everything about it is just amazing. Literally, the only bad thing about it is that it's a gacha game, but even then, it's not as predatory as it is in other gacha games. For me, this was this year's biggest surprise than any other game that was released this year. What else did you expect to be my personal favorite for my game of the year? Baldur's Gate 3 was actually my childhood dream coming true, playing a Dungeons and Dragons game. The story in this game is so deep. There's so many branching paths that every playthrough will dramatically be different, whether it's from the choices you make or the fate of the dice rolls determining your path. The characters are all interesting, aside from a couple, but that's just to me personally, and I understand that. The combat can be confusing at the beginning, but the more you understand, the more you appreciate the game and all the possibilities that can happen. I did make a video on this if you do want to hear more of my opinion on this game, but there is a reason why this game is sweeping a lot of awards. And I know some journalists are not having Baldur's Gate 3 as their game of the year because all of us are sick of seeing Baldur's Gate 3 win yet another deserving award. It's pretty much the perfect game, and the only real flaw is the barrier to entry is somewhat high. But I know Larian Studios is actively fixing that, as they just released like an update, I think, where they made the game easier or harder depending on what kind of experience that you want from the game. Man, I played a lot of games this year. This year has been full of bangers, and it's crazy to think that there are still games that I still need to play that came out this year, such as Hi-Fi Rush, Octopath Traveler 2, Final Fantasy 16, Spider-Man 2, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Armored Core, and finishing up Lies of P. Maybe Alan Wake, if I can face my fears. Maybe I'll do another video after I fully complete all the games that I wanted to do that came out this year. Who knows? Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you like this type of content. I plan on doing more of this on any game that I do decide to play. If you have any suggestions for any game, you can leave a comment down below or come join the Discord in the link below that I am active in. See you guys later.